Unless you've been living under a rock or just don't really care about camera gear, you'll be aware of Panasonic's new cameras, the S1 and the S1R. The S1R is more geared towards photography, whereas the S1 is a bit more geared towards video, much like Sony with the A7R III versus the A7 III and Nikon with the Z6 and Z7. So I'm currently on the GH5. I use this for pretty much 90% of the video work I do, from weddings to vlogs to pretty much everything in between. I use this one camera. Features such as 4K 50 or 60 with unlimited recording times, the focus peaking, the IBIS, the flip out screen, everything I've listed and more are features that I would miss if I didn't have them. And I've certainly utilized pretty much all of them in the past year that I've owned this camera. So as well as a GH5, I've also got this GH4, which is kind of my sort of secondary B-roll B-cam camera, but I think we're going to look at getting some more GH5s for the business later this year, maybe a couple more lenses as well, because we want to standardize all our video to kind of one system, or at least one brand. When I was looking to upgrade from my good old trusty 550D, which as far as I'm concerned is one of the OG sort of HD video DSLR cameras. I know there was the Nikon D90 and there was a D7000, but as far as I'm concerned, the 550D was the OG, and that was the one that kind of made cinematic filmmaking available to the masses. I was dead set on the A7S II. I liked the A7S, but of course it couldn't record 4K internally, but the 7S II could. And I just wanted something that could do 4K full frame. That's what I wanted. I thought everything that was coming off there from my favorite YouTubers looked great, and I thought, right, this is the camera for me. But when it came to looking for it on Amazon, I couldn't find much. A lot of it was secondhand, and the ones I could find were really expensive. And then I started to look elsewhere and I came across the GH5. I had actually used Micro Four Thirds before. When I was at university, we used the Panasonic AF101 and I didn't really like it. It wasn't terrible, you know, the video quality was actually pretty decent, but I just couldn't get the depth of field I wanted. And compared to this, which I brought with me, I thought the video quality was pretty similar. This obviously had a bigger sensor. I knew the camera, and just the ergonomics were better because the AF101, at least the kit lens that we were kind of given to use with it, was the Panasonic 14-140 lens. And that's not a bad lens, but the autofocus was pretty much non-existent on the AF101. At least it wasn't good. And it's obviously focused by wire, as I mentioned, and focused by wire is such a frustrating mess when you're trying to rack focus. And then it didn't have a touchscreen, of course, so setting focus was really difficult, and you had to rely, I think you had to rely on focus peaking. It just wasn't that great, and then the ergonomics of the camera kind of awkward, so I didn't have a great start with Micro Four Thirds, so I stuck with my APS-C because I knew this camera had everything I needed. However, upon reading and watching some of the reviews, seeing some of the footage, I was absolutely convinced that this was the right camera for me. And I've used this camera for nearly a year now. I got it in March 2018, and I've used it on a bunch of client shoots such as weddings and commercial videos, and also personal videos and vlogs like this, and it's been fantastic. I've been really impressed with it. The video quality is amazing. The video files themselves are pretty malleable, so I can color grade them pretty well, and I've only really shot on 8-bit. I haven't even got to shooting on 10-bit yet, but I'm looking to start doing that as and when the projects come in. Despite all the praise and everything, and it really is a great camera, I am still curious about full frame. I still do like the look of that, and part of me wonders, would I prefer having that? Now, Neil, who you'll probably see in some of the videos, he is our main photographer, and for photography we use Nikons, and the main Nikon is a D810, which is full frame. And I do like the video that comes off that, although the actual quality of the video and the files and all the features on the GH5 are far superior. So when Panasonic announced the S1 and S1R, actually I felt a bit betrayed at first, thinking, oh crap, they're gonna, you know, do away with Micro Four Thirds, which I'm pretty confident they won't, because I kind of consider Micro Four Thirds to be their sort of APS-C equivalent. But actually, once I got over the betrayal, I was really interested, because I was thinking, okay, well, this is essentially going to end up being a full-frame GH5. I was wondering if buying at least an S1 as well might be worth looking into. That would mean, though, that I would have to buy into the new lens system. And that's not to say the L mount system is bad. I'm sure it's going to be great. The lenses look great, but they are quite expensive, and there's only going to be 3 at launch. So I'd have to wait for, 6 months to a year for a decent amount to become available, and for decent adapters to become available. And we have invested quite heavily already into the Micro Four Thirds system. So of course there are arguments with full frame. Obviously, as I mentioned, you can't totally replicate the look of full frame. You can get pretty close, and a lot of the time you wouldn't notice, but there is just something about it. One of those things is obviously the shutter depth of field. Now you can get pretty close because if you whack on such as the 25mm f1.7 or faster, you can get some really nice shallow depth of field. And with a speed booster, putting it on a full frame, this is quite an old lens, but a full frame lens such as this 50mm f1.9, you do get more depth of field from that because it's bringing in more of the lens but not changing the actual amount of bokeh you're getting. So you would get more, and you're essentially converting your sensor size into the equivalent of about a super 35mm, which of course is what a lot of cinema films use. And another point about the Micro Four Thirds mount is it's got really great native support. Obviously Panasonic's got a bunch of lenses and it's made in conjunction with Olympus, so there's obviously a bunch of Olympus lenses you can use and they'll work fine on the Lumix. And there's a load of third-party lenses such as Voigtlander and Samyang and a whole bunch of adapters that are really good quality from Speed Booster and Viltrox and KNF Concepts and a whole load of others. You are never going to have a shortage of lenses. Not only can you adapt full-frame lenses, you can adapt APS-C lenses, obviously you've got Micro Four Thirds lenses, and you can go all the way down to like C-mount lenses, and you wouldn't really, depending on the sort of field of view of it, you don't even have to crop in that much. So the C-mount lenses such as the CCTV ones, there's a 35mm, don't have to do any cropping in. If you use a super 16mm lens, you barely have to crop in, maybe a tiny little bit, but compared to if you used it on a full frame lens, you'd get this circle, whereas on a Micro Four Thirds, you don't. And then if you want extra field of view, use a speed booster. So there's a lot you can do with the Micro Four Thirds system. And lastly, of course, you will generally find that the lenses you get for Micro Four Thirds are smaller and lighter, which is great if you are a run and gun filmmaker and sometimes you need to keep your kit light. Because full frame lenses, not always, but a lot of the time can be really big, really cumbersome, really heavy, and having lighter lenses is better. And also a lot of the times, again, not always, I can't speak for most of the time, but a lot of the time, the native lenses are cheaper. So this 12-60 I'm using right now, it's of decent quality, certainly a lot better than what I think you get on some of the Nikon and Canon kit lenses, and that cost me maybe 350 quid. For the full frame S1 equivalent, I'd have to pay 4 times as much. So with all that being said, why would I even bother buying an S1? And again, it boils down to that full frame look. I just can't get away from that sort of want for a full frame look. Obviously, that means I don't have to worry about crop factor because a 24mm is a 24mm, whereas on here it's the equivalent of a 48mm, so I have to use a 12mm to get the same field of view. And also that kind of extends, and this is something that I don't think is talked about a lot, and it's finding wide-angle lenses for the Micro Four Thirds that are at least somewhat affordable and don't create crazy fisheye. So I've been looking at 7.5 and 7mm lenses, which is obviously 14mm equivalent. They're nearly always fisheye. There are some non-fisheye ones, but a lot of the time they are fisheye. And I've been looking at the 9 to 18mm lens, which is probably what I'm going to go for. And that's, I know that's supposed to be not the best build quality, but the picture's pretty decent. But I just think it seems like it's a lot easier to find wider than 24mm equivalent lenses for full frame than it is for Micro Four Thirds. But really, for us to actually switch over or at least kind of buy into 2 lens systems, the S1 actually would have had to exceed the video sort of capabilities of the GH5, and they come close but they don't actually match, and they certainly don't exceed it. So obviously you do have 4K 50 and 60, but it's got a time limit of, I think, but some the S1R is 12 minutes. I think the S1's 29 minutes. I can't actually remember, but there is a recording limit. And I sometimes record weddings at 50 frames a second and just keep going. And that's kind of annoying for me because I like to be able to slow down certain parts. So if I can't just record until my memory card runs out or the battery runs out, that's annoying. That's problematic for me. The other thing as well, and I just think it's a bit disappointing, I can kind of understand why that would be the case, is the fact that it's an APS-C crop at 50 frames a second. And I thought, given the size of it, it would be able to do full width, 4K, 50 frames a second. I could just about cope with the time limit, but the whole point of buying a full frame is to do full frame video. So it is a little bit disappointing. A lot of the other features are pretty much the same. I really like the feature of focus by wire. As I've mentioned, my frustrations with focus by wire is this new linear function, which actually treats it more like a manual focus. And that's a really cool feature and something that I hope they'll introduce in the GH6 actually. So the other thing as well is this screen. And I think I mentioned this earlier. It doesn't flip out. And I don't know why. Like, is it to do with a power thing? Is it to do with a pattern issue? But it does more than the Sony ones have done, but even then, it flips out the wrong way at 90 degrees, whereas, yeah, I don't really get that. Surely you'd at least want the option to be able to flip the screen out, because this is, I say by all, for all intents and purposes, this is a professional camera, and if they're treating the S1 as a professional camera, why can't it have a flip screen? So I'm just kind of baffled by that one. The other thing as well that kind of annoys me, and I don't know why they're doing this, and it's the same thing that's happening in games quite a lot, and it's this paid upgrade thing. Yes, fine, Vlog is a paid upgrade, which, whatever, I'm not going to go into that one because that frustrates me. I know you can get it on the GH5S, but this one I'd have to pay for it. What interests me is that some of the recording codecs are also including this paid update, and that should just come as standard. I don't know which ones it is, but it's something to do with internal 10-bit recording. I think that's a paid update, and I don't get why. Why can't I not just buy the camera and that's got all the features it should have inbuilt? They're getting, £2,000 plus from me. Why can I not have this little feature? I'm sure the upgrade's going to cost like £100 or something, maybe more. So yeah, I think that's a bit cheeky on their part. And the last little thing, now this is just a little, not everyone's going to find this interesting, but I do. It's I think it's XQD card slot. Now, I'm sure XQD is great. I know it's supposed to be pretty good, but I don't have any kind of XQD card readers. All our memory cards are SD, and not having just 2 SD card slots is going to be, or would be, annoying. I utilise the 2 SD card slots on the GH5 a lot, especially for weddings, as a redundancy recording, because memory cards fail, we all know that. If I'm having to buy more expensive XQD cards just to do multiple recording, that's going to kind of annoy me. And again, it comes down to this cost of things and being cost effective. So overall, I'd say I feel like I kind of ragged on the S1, and I think it's because the expectations are so high. Actually, if you look at it compared to, the A7 III and the EOS R and Nikon Z6 and, all their sort of photography counterparts, actually the S1 is, in my opinion, the one I'd go for, and it is probably the best of those full frame ones. I definitely think in a lot of other ways, and the fact that it still can do 4K 50, and okay, fine, it's APS-C, but it's still more than what Sony's offering. I do think it would be something, if I was upgrading from this now and I hadn't got the GH5, I think I probably would look at the S1. At some point I will look at upgrading. Now I'll be really interested to see what they do with the GH6 as opposed to what I'm guessing will be the S2 and S2R. If the S2 were to offer maybe slightly higher resolution recording, 4K 60, full frame readout, unlimited recording, a proper flip out screen, and maybe some more interesting codecs such as 10 or 12-bit RAW maybe, and I would actually be up for paying for, I would be more up for paying for 12-bit RAW than they were for 10-bit not RAW. But we'll see. I don't know. I think I'm more likely to go for the GH6 because I'm more interested in features, and I also have invested in the Micro Four Thirds system. But we'll see where things go. If my needs show me needing more full frame, then we'll consider it. But for now, I think we're going to stick with the GH5 and the Micro Four Thirds system. But that's not to say the S1 is a bad camera, because actually it's a great camera, and the reviews I've seen and all the footage I've seen is great. It looks really exciting, and I'm excited to see what Panasonic do with it. But for me personally, for now, no. But in the future, maybe. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that video. I hope that's made sense. I hope you didn't hate anything I said in it. If you enjoyed it, obviously please subscribe and do the whole notifications thing, and I will see you in the next video, which will be the Starlux video. I did promise that. That's coming, and we'll see you for that one and many more videos coming soon, I hope. Okay, goodbye.